What is going on, everyone? It is Luca Rosano here, back with the Raptors Nation podcast. Very special edition of the Raptors Nation podcast. I thought I would do a live one just because it's been a crazy day trying to get, everything up on the website, recorded a piece for my personal channel, and I just wanted to do a debrief, just come on here, talk about what happened, talk about the day, the events, all of the trades, and just get a little discussion going as the Toronto Raptors trade deadline is in the books. It ended up being a super busy trade deadline. The Raptors making a bunch of transactions. Their biggest was, of course, last night with Brandon Ingram, but today a lot of trades still went down, moves up until the buzzer. The biggest surprise of the day, Chris Boucher did not get traded. So we're going to talk about all of that and more. Do me a solid, guys. Drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. For more live streams just like this, you can follow this pod wherever you get your favorite podcast, Apple, iTunes, Spotify. I'm going to put the audio up there after the completion of this recording. And you can follow me on X at Luca Rosano 3. So basically, I'm going to go through the trades that the Raptors made, give you my take on all of them, and then we're going to open the discussion up for some Q&A. I'll, turn to you guys and as we can discuss these trades together. So let's first backtrack here. We'll go back to the Brandon Ingram deal. Obviously, that was the biggest move the Raptors made for their trade deadline. Unexpected in some circles. It's something that I didn't see coming. I know there were a lot of rumors and reports. Raptors and Hawks reportedly neck and neck down to the wire, but I did not think that the Raptors were going to end up pulling this off, but they did, as the deal for Brandon Ingram is Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, a first-round pick, which ends up being the Pacers' 2026 first-round pick, top 4 protected, a second-round pick, which is the 2031 second-rounder of the Raptors to the Pelicans for, of course, Brandon Ingram. So there's been a lot of discussion about this trade, and I dropped a separate video on that yesterday on this channel, even on my personal channel. I'll just kind of give you where I'm at right now. I mean, it's no surprise that a lot of people, myself included, a little bit confused, I guess, of why this trade goes down at this point. Obviously, this is a team that I thought was rebuilding. I thought was going to take the traditional route on things, take the slow approach, preach patience, but they saw an opportunity to get an all-star at a buy low cost, which is what they did. You look at this deal just from the value of it, it's a good trade, right? You give up an expiring contract, Olynyk, who, let's call it for what it is, had very inconsistent playing time with this team, veteran. So you part ways with him, and then that pick ends up being the pick from the Pacers. So it's not going to be a substantial pick. It's not going to be a lottery pick, I don't think, because you would think Indiana is going to be a really, they're going to be amongst some of the best teams in the East. So all that for an all-star, it seems like a no-brainer. Absolutely. Surface level of it. And of course, when you start dissecting it, there are concerns about, is this team trying to expedite the rebuild? Are they trying to win now? Are they, they're all of a sudden an expensive team. How are they going to make that work? Is another trade forthcoming to get under that tax? So those are all legitimate questions. How's the fit going to be? Brandon Ingram, he's not deemed a healthy, durable player. So we'll see all that, how that comes into the mix and how things play out on that front. Where I'm at with this trade, because I've listed a bunch of the pros and the cons, and, you can agree with some of them, you can disagree with some of them. Where I'm at right now is simply this. If by the Raptors trading Brandon Ingram, if it doesn't jeopardize or ruin their chances at a top pick in this upcoming draft, then I really like this trade, because then you're looking at it through the lens of the Raptors made this trade for next season. But if the Raptors all of a sudden push for the play-in and they try to win now, and they become a playing team, I don't think their ceiling is high in that regard. So then if they're all of a sudden one and done come playing time, or sneak into the playoffs just to go one and done there, and then you ruined what could have been trying to go for a top pick. I think that sets them back. So I really hope the Raptors play their cards right here. That's what I'm holding out for. Call me delusional, but I really hope we are in a situation now where the Raptors made a good value trade for BI when you look at who they sent out and what they got back. And now can they play their cards right and still keep their draft lottery odds at bay? And the reason why I'm holding out optimism with that is because BI is still injured with that ankle. There is no definitive timetable for his return. And you look at the moves the Raptors made, we'll get to them in more detail in just a minute. Their depth is depleted. So if BI doesn't play, this is a worse basketball team because you stripped away some of that depth. So we'll see how long this goes that BI is out. I don't expect the Raptors to shut him down or anything like that. But like we will see him at some point. But when he's back, is it just going to be a matter of, I just want to give this guy some reps going into next season? I don't want him to sit the entire season. That's going to be the big question. I think if you play that angle and you strategically take the slow approach that way of bringing him into the fold, and you're still in a good position when it comes to the draft, then I think this goes down as a really, really great trade. But if it goes the other way and all of a sudden BI's back 2 weeks from now and this team's like, yeah, we're going for that final play-in spot because Chicago's going to fall, I just question at that point, what is this team's long-term plan? Because if this is all of a sudden a team that's trying to bypass the rebuild, trying to win now, this team is not only expensive, but they're not going to be a team that makes any type of noise right now. I don't think that's the case. I don't think this is a high ceiling team. So then, you're trying to just take a step forward when really you're just going backwards in the grand scheme of things. So I hope that's not the case. I hope they do this properly. And I think a lot of people are holding out for that, because if they do play it properly and they get a top lotto pick, this trade looks a hell of a lot better. But if they go the other way and they're trying to compete, like I don't see this team right now as constructed being a major player in the Eastern Conference. I know the play-in picture is weak, but there's just a lot of questions on that front. So that's where I'm at right now. That's why I think the key in all this is to see how the Raptors approach the rest of the season, what their true intention is. If I had to guess, I would say that Masai, I would assume, is trying maybe to hold out for a top pick, but really we don't know. And it all comes down to when Brandon Ingram is brought back. And then there's also some other pieces that you got to get back as well. Like Jakob Poeltl's going to miss another game against the Thunder. RJ Barrett's still not cleared from concussion protocol. But the biggest piece is Ingram in all of this. Again, I don't think they're going to shut him down, but are they going to wait, let's just say, into March before we see him? And is it going to be simply, let's just see what this guy looks like, and we're not trying to win games necessarily? Because Brandon Ingram definitely makes this team a better team. Like, if he starts playing and everybody's healthy, like, let's just say a week from now, the Raptors are probably going to end up in that play-in spot. He does add value. Like, he's a good player. And you look at what he's going to bring offensively. I know there's questions with his fit, with RJ, with Scotty, but Brandon Ingram is going to be this team's best scoring option, I believe. Like, he's going to be that go-to scorer. He's going to be that guy that you give the ball to late in games. Like, the Raptors have that shot creator they've been seeking. So I think offensively, like, it's going to be very good. Defensively, there's questions. Obviously, spacing, working with Barnes and Barrett. More so, Barrett, because I think Barnes is he does a lot of his damage in other ways, so he doesn't need to be scoring the ball to be effective. But we'll see how that all plays out. But yeah, just to summarize that, like, that's where I'm at. I hope this isn't a win now. We're trying to go for the play-in, forget about the draft, because that's going to be like 2 generational drafts where the Raptors are like, to hell with trying to get a top pick. Like, we're going for the play-in. And then the 1 year where they decide, yeah, we're going to tank, ends up being one of the worst draft classes in recent years. Like, that's not a good look. So again, I'm not going to jump to conclusions because BI's still out. So I'm still hoping the Raptors play the draft game. I know it's going to be tough to get a top 5 pick because some of the teams that are above the Raptors in the reverse standings are probably going to be very bad down the stretch. But, even if it's a top 6 pick, I think you're still comfortable with that versus this team going the other way and just completely falling out of that, call it top 8. So, yeah, that is the Ingram stuff. So, exciting nonetheless. I mean, the Raptors, they do have a former All-Star. It's going to be interesting to see his fit immediately and the partnership he develops with Scottie Barnes. Is that going to be something that develops into a real dynamic duo? What's going on, DJ? What's going on, AG? What's going on, Toronto Walker? Not really important, but do you think Jacoby gives up 14? You would hope so, right? Hit that like button, amigos. Appreciate you, buddy. Tarifico. But yeah, guys, just moving along here. We'll get to more like of a traditional Q&A towards the end. I just want to go through these trades, but appreciate everybody in here right now. Drop a like, subscribe. This is the Raptors Nation podcast. Again, you can find this Apple, iTunes, Spotify. This is the first ever edition of the pod that I'm doing live. So if you guys like the format of this, I could do a lot more of these pods live. I think it's better this way, quite frankly. So, okay, that's the Ingram trade. Let's just get through the rest here before I open up the floor to questions and all that. Davion Mitchell. So the Raptors, they sent out Davion Mitchell to the Miami Heat for PJ Tucker and a second-round pick and cash consideration. So Davion Mitchell, I think that's a fantastic get for Miami. Miami secretly had a good deadline. They got younger and they got defensive-minded guys in Mitchell and Wiggins. And the second-round pick the Raptors are receiving is the Lakers 2026 second-round pick. That's per Sportsnet's Blake Murphy. So when you look at this move, I know it didn't sit well with a lot of people because Davion Mitchell was one of the better defensive players on this team. Hell, like, he did a lot of good things for the Raptors. Like, you got to give Mitchell credit. That's why I'm going to miss him in a sense because, like, he was a great on-ball defender here. He injected so much life into the defensive identity of this team. Guys, the Raptors went through their best stretch this season with Davion Mitchell playing point guard. Take that in. So I wish him nothing but the best. I think he's going to be a fantastic fit with Miami. But when you look at why the Raptors did it, it does make sense from this lens because, you look at Shed, his rise has been phenomenal as well. He's the younger guy. He's going to get reps, minutes over Mitchell. We started to see that as he overtook Mitchell in the rotation, Mitchell falling out of the rotation once the Raptors got fully healthy with IQ back. So it did make a lot of sense from the writing was on the wall from that perspective, and it made a lot of sense when looking at it like that. For as nice of a defensive presence Mitchell is, like Shed's, the Raptors are big on Shed, man. Like this is, Shed's the backup in town and, his play has justified it. Shed has done a really good job for the Toronto Raptors. As you look at the Raptors, they're able to get, a pick in this as well for helping the Miami Heat shed some of the salary. And then the interesting part about this move is PJ Tucker is in Toronto. Now, it's likely that Tucker is going to be bought out. So I don't think we're going to see PJ Tucker back in Toronto. Of course, that's where he started his career. But the belief is the Raptors are going to buy him out. He hasn't reported yet with the team. And of course, the Raptors, they did draft him 35th overall in 2006. So I thought that was a little interesting addition to it. But yeah, Tucker is going to get bought out. I like the Raptors get a pick. Mitchell, obviously, the Raptors looked at him as we got Jamal Shed now. We can move off from him. He was a pending restricted free agent. So this is just a matter of the Raptors getting something for Mitchell as he didn't fit with this team's long-term plans. And it became increasingly likely that this was going to happen with the recent improvement and impressive play of Jamal Shed. So I understand why the Raptors did it. I like that they get the pick. And the Raptors are going to need a lot of financial flexibility with signing BI's next contract, right? Like, hopefully you get a bargain there, but BI's still going to get paid. Like I said, the Raptors are going to be an expensive tax team. It'll be interesting to see how they get out of that. Are they going to end up trading like an RJ Barrett down the line? That remains to be seen. But the Raptors, they are going to be in an expensive team once they be out of that new deal, and even if they get a top 5 pick. So that's something that I'm sure Masai and company has thought about. But just real quick, just touching on the Brandon Ingram stuff. I don't have any concerns that he's not going to resign. Like, the Raptors, they're not dumb. Like, they wouldn't have given up a first-round pick unless they got the full-on approval that Ingram's signing. So I don't think you have to worry about that. All right, let's move along here. The Raptors, they snuck in another trade before the buzzer. James Wiseman is coming to Toronto with cash from the Indiana Pacers. In exchange, Wiseman and cash from the Pacers in exchange for a top 55 protected second-round pick, according to Shams. So, look, I know Wiseman hasn't been able to stay healthy. And, this is a guy who's a former number 2 pick, came into the NBA with super high expectations. And it sucks because he saw the early part of his career derailed by injuries. But I actually like this move by the Raptors. It doesn't hurt him. Like, this is a low risk. Maybe it turns into something type of move. Maybe James Wiseman can resurrect his career magically. Like, the dude is still 23 years old. He is a young player. And this is a Raptors team that is in need of front court depth. Like, this is a team that right now they're looking at Chris Boucher or Jonathan Mobo starting in a game against the Thunder. Just because Orlando Robinson's 10-day contract has expired. We'll see if the team re-signs them there. And obviously there's no more Olynyk. He's on his way to New Orleans. So this doesn't make an immediate impact at all because Wiseman, of course, is out with a torn Achilles. So he won't be seen this season. But you look at Wiseman, he does have a $2.5 million club option for next season, with only $569K guaranteed if waived before June 29th, and the rest of his deal would become fully guaranteed on January 10th, 2026. So again, this is a low-risk move by the Raptors. Why not take a chance on him? We've seen crazier things happen of guys, coming back, and you just hope that this is a classic case of a guy in James Wiseman who resurrects his career miraculously in Toronto. So I actually like this. I don't think there's any negative, there's no downfall to this. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But you're taking a chance on a former number 2 overall pick and a guy who, again, has had the early part of his career decimated by injury. But Q McKechnie, can he resurrect another injury-prone guy, with Wiseman and going back to BI too, with BI having questions about his durability and concerns about his health. So, yeah, I thought that was a nice little move by the Raptors. And then finally here, it was a non-move, a surprising move. This was the guy who I for sure thought was going to be traded. Chris Boucher was not dealt. I am surprised that Chris Boucher survived another deadline. It became evident that a Boucher deal was about to happen. You look at Boucher, $10.8 million expiring contract. Would have made a lot of sense for contending teams, but just like last deadline, the Raptors unable to find a deal, unable to find a trade suitor. The Knicks, Nuggets were even reportedly interested, rumored to be interested right up until the trade deadline, but nothing ended up happening. So Boucher remains the lone member of the Raptors' 2019 championship team. But it is confusing because, I don't see him getting a whole ton of playing time down the stretch unless the Raptors, all of a sudden want to try to win and they play him more, or just it's a matter of they don't have front court depth. So we'll probably see Boucher actually for now, just because they don't have any bigs until they figure out what they're going to do with Orlando Robinson, or even maybe we'll see Chomchi soon. Who knows? But Boucher had fallen out of the rotation. And he did play really well in his most recent stretch. It seemed like he was going to be traded. A deal doesn't get done. And I know fans are holding out. It's like, hell, you didn't trade Boucher. Let him retire with the Raptors. I fully expect Boucher to not be brought back. Like, he's a UFA this summer. And I think the Raptors could use every bit of financial flexibility with the Ingram deal that's going to kick in. So I think this is going to be a simple... simply being Boucher walking. Like, they're going to let Boucher walk, and then he's going to be able to join a contender. And I think at this stage of his career, Boucher deserves that. He deserves to be a valuable member of a contender trying to push for something substantial, because he is still a really good spark plug from off the bench. We see it every time. It seems like Boucher plays, the Raptors are in a game or they have a chance to win or they win the game. And when he doesn't play, it goes the other way. So I thought it was a fun little wrinkle. Interesting that Boucher survives another deadline, but do not expect Boucher to be brought back this summer. So I think this is going to be a classic case of just enjoy what's left of Boucher, the last of his tenure with the Toronto Raptors. So that basically concludes the Raptors trade deadline. I think overall they did a good job in terms of like the moves around the edges. Like I said, the Ingram deal is the biggest question mark. We'll see how it pans out, how it affects the draft lotto odds. But going back, like if it doesn't affect the draft lotto odds, then I'm fully on board with this Ingram trade. I think there's a lot of value in seeing a future of Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, and a future lotto pick. Like I think there's something special there. But if they go the other way and you're just trying to make this group work, I don't think this particular group right now has the highest of ceilings to justify the amount of money you're spending to keep this team intact. So again, I don't think the job is done. Like for now it is, but I think there could be some more changes in the near future. But all in all, for what the Raptors have done now, they obviously have made their decisions. We'll see how it works and where this team stands as we get closer to the end of the season. But for now, it doesn't seem like the Raptors are going to win too many games, especially with them depleted against the Thunder. So we'll see I think the key is going to be out of the All-Star break. I think for the next couple of games, there's going to be a lot of guys in and out, as they await for this team to get fully healthy. Out of the All-Star break, what's Brandon Ingram's status going to be like? Where's this team going to be at? And what is going to be their method to close out the season? So with that being said, let's open the floor now to some Q&A for the rest of this pod, or just some general discussion. What are your thoughts when it comes to this Raptors trade deadline? You can chime in on the BI trade, the non-trade of Boucher, the trading of Davon Mitchell, and just where you see this team right now. Like, what truly is the direction of this team? Is this simply Masai just buying low now, but still having the direction of we're playing the long game in mind? Or is he like, forget about this rebuild, we want to win right now? So like I think we're going to know the definitive answer to that question based on how they handle this team and kind of the health of Brandon Ingram and when he comes back. All right, let's try to catch up on some questions here. Man, like Masai is not getting on the press conference. So the it's going to be Bobby Webster, but it's not I don't believe it's going to happen until the once the Brandon Ingram trade finalizes. So the Raptors have made the Davon Mitchell trade official. I do want to point that out via Josh Lewenberg. But they're still waiting on a trade call with the league to make the Ingram deal official. Then Bobby Webster will speak to the media. So I don't think Masai is going to be addressing this. It will be Bobby Webster. Technically, you could play a 12-man roster, fill out the two ways, could still stay under the tax with open roster spots. Likely wasn't traded because they couldn't take money back with Ingram's $50 million contract pending. The math ain't mathing. Has any of the barbecue made a reaction to the Ingram trade? I don't believe so. I don't believe we've seen. I think Ingram did something on his Instagram, but don't quote me on that. I think I saw something on X. Could have been fake though. Who would you like to see as Jakob's backup? says Eduardo. Yeah, so that's interesting right now. The Raptors don't have bigs. Right now, their big depth chart is Chris Boucher and Jonathan Mobile. Like, they might have to call up Ulrich Chomchi, like, to play in that game against OKC. Orlando Robinson, I thought he showed us a lot of good things. It's going to be interesting to see if they extend him to a standard contract. So, in terms of right now, I think Mobile's going to get a lot of playing time as kind of that small ball big. But it's, James Wiseman's not playing this season, obviously. Raptors are taking a chance with him. I think the Raptors are going to have to bolster that front court going into the offseason. But for now, it's just going to be a combination of either 10-day guys, Raptors bringing in another big. Maybe it is Orlando Robinson, who is signed to a deal. Or, you're going to see a lot of Mobile. Or I want to see, I hope we get to a point where this team is got their eyes still set on the draft. We're in the late part of March or early part of March, and you're seeing Ulrich Chomchi just get a lot of playing opportunity, because I still want to see the young guys get playing time. I know it hasn't been super pretty, but I think it's a good thing seeing Shed, Mobile, Walter in crucial minutes. I love that almost comeback against the New York Knicks the other night. It was great to see those young guys, and I think you can use the rest of the season for that, and you kill two birds with one stone. You develop the young guys, you hold out on the draft pick for a high draft pick, and then you're really in a good position next season with Ingram. So that's how I would perfectly envision or hope the rest of the season went when talking about just, rookies and young guys getting opportunities. But the Orlando Robinson's 10-day contract expired today, so we should know more about that soon, on whether or not the Raptors are bringing him back and who their next 10-day project is going to be, if you will, if it's a big or somebody else. But at this point, I would think it's a big, just because of how depleted they are there. Raptors def is good. IQ is the only liability. Defensively, I'm not sold on this group. Brandon Ingram's been at times an inconsistent defender, but obviously Barnes is going to be that bulk leaned upon defender. RJ has done a much better job defensively, I gotta say. But yeah, IQ, you saw, with Davion, when you had him as that primary point of attack, defender, that just putting pressure on ball, making it super difficult for those opposing guards. Barnes was more of that free safety, and the defense just looked a lot better that way. So it's going to be a work in progress for sure. And they're going to need IQ to step up on that end of the floor. Is BI going to be in the press conference tonight? I don't think it's going to happen tonight, given what time it is right now, and they still have to finalize the trade. So I would think maybe it's tomorrow. Yeah, so John says hopefully BI will sign 3 years, 120. So when I did my video on my personal channel, Luca Rosano, you could go check that out as well, guys. I said a con is if you get a bargain deal for Brandon Ingram. So are you able to get a little bit of a deal there? But when you look at, I'm trying to find the tweet because I retweeted it just so I get the number right. Bobby Marks put it out. So Ingram is eligible to sign a 3-year, $144 million extension with Toronto up until June 30th. The Raptors have bird rights on Ingram and can exceed the cap this July to sign him. So I hope he signs for less than that, because that would be a big deal if he ends up going for that. That is $48 million a season. Then the Raptors are definitely going to have to look at potentially moving somebody to get, under. I said it before, if I have to make an initial prediction, honestly, I think this suggests that, RJ Barrett could be moved in the future. The deadline's done. It's obviously not going to happen now, or maybe not necessarily around draft time or the summer, but I think there's going to be a big decision there, especially if the Raptors end up getting the top draft pick. They're going to have to try to get under that tax somehow. And I know, there's a lot of questions about, can Barnes, Barrett, and Ingram legitimately all coexist? Like, truthfully, I can see BI and Barnes being a very good duo just because Scotty Barnes can play unselfishly and he's still an impact player because he brings it defensively. He's super gifted with his playmaking. He does all the other things and then, that leaves BI as the primary scorer, ball in his hands. But now you got to work RJ in, who does a lot of his damage where Scotty and BI do their damage in the mid-range. That's where it could get a little bit clunky, right? Like, that's where you'd rather have a guy who can just space the floor and consistently hit from the outside. And I'm not saying RJ can't be that, but it does raise questions about, can those three guys in particular all make it work with the spacing on the floor? RJ Barrett shooting 34.9%. Like, when you have a guy in BI and Barnes, you want as much shooting as possible on the floor to just open things up. So that's where I have my doubts about those three. And that's why what I'm saying is, don't be surprised if RJ Barrett ends up being the odd man out in the grand scheme of this all. Chomchi, big W. Based on what I just said, you want more shooting, but Grady hasn't even been the most consistent of shooters. I think it's going to be RJ for sure in the lineup to start this whole Brandon Ingram experiment, but I think you need shooting around those guys. IQ or RJ, one of them is going somewhere this offseason. I would say more likely RJ, just because they paid IQ and, I think he could be a nice fit if his shooting is consistent. For now, I think Grady's going to the bench, yeah. Is Cooper less of a priority? I hope he's not less of a priority. But a big man, I could see the Raptors ending up in that area where they could get a big, but I hope I'm still hoping out for a top 5. Like I said, I'm gonna be a delusional optimist in that sense. But yeah, we could see definitely a pivot like that. Like that is a pick that can make a ton of sense, just given where the Raptors end up falling if they're not in a top 5, top 3 spot. Ulrich getting 10 plus minutes now. I'd love to see Ulrich Chomsky unleashed. This lower contract amount is a filler contract until then. Well, he could sign for up to that amount that I said earlier, so that would be 48 a season. Yeah, BI is 37% from 3, so that's the thing, right? You're gonna have to hopefully see this thing through with the shooting. Right now, it's not looking too hot, but BI, he does have that 3-point shot in his repertoire, which is nice. Yeah, there you go. C4C says press conference delayed till 10 a.m. tomorrow. Don't wait up, guys. Was that announced anywhere? Because the Brandon Ingram trade's not officially done yet, according to Lewinberg. I wouldn't trade RJ. It wouldn't be good for Toronto to continue trading away Canadians. I think like I said, that's my prediction. I think he's the odd man out when you look at this thing realistically. But we'll see. You think we make in the playoffs next season? I want to get through the rest of this season first before I make any predictions on that. But I'll say this. I think they can be in a really good position if they end up getting a top pick. I really think they'll be golden if they don't mess up this upcoming draft by some grace. They'll be in a good spot. Like, they're already a playing team. So, if they go for it. Oh, true. On the Raptors YouTube page. If we get a top 3 pick, we'll easily be a playoff team. Oh yeah, you're really cooking at that point. That's a good place to be, that's for sure. I have high hopes for Ingram and Barnes, says AG. I agree. I agree with that. That's where I'm at right now. I think this is this perfectly sums up where I'm at. I think Ingram and Barnes, like at first, I'll be honest, I was hesitant thinking about it. But like I just said earlier, I think because Barnes can be that unselfish, that non-selfish player, like I really can see those two guys operating really well. And BI can kind of be selfish offensively to score the basketball. And I think they'll complement each other from that perspective. So I do have big hopes for Ingram and Barnes now. The more I kind of looked into it and sold myself on the idea. But again, the RJ Barrett stuff is what's fascinating in that pairing. This trade is only a good trade if RJ gets replaced with a 3-and-D sharpshooter. With this trade, we might potentially have the worst 3-point starting lineup in the NBA. This is the 2005 team. Yeah, I just said that a minute ago, man. No 3-point shooting. The spacing is an issue. Like, let's be real. When you look at this team, you envision shooting next to a guy in Barnes and BI. And is that Grady if he can? But, you know, he's been a liability defensively. So the Raptors are truly lacking a 3-and-D. And I think, like, in that sense, too, hopefully Barnes, with this trade, can become a better 3-point shooter. I think, like, when you look at Barnes' game, that has been one of the disappointments. Like, he's had a nice season. He's definitely been playing well. But I think if you want to nitpick, that's the one thing that you're like, damn, like, I thought, you know, he was going to be a lot better in, especially when he made the jump last season with his 3-point shot. I think it's been disappointing in that sense that, yeah, Barnes has just not been able to find his rhythm from deep. And that's what makes this even a worse 3-point shooting team now with the addition of Ingram. And then that's why you get into all these questions about spacing and clunky fit. It's just because 3-point shooting right now is very low. Like, Barnes is shooting 26.5% from 3. That's a career worst right now, guys. I know he's only played 38 games, but that's on pace to being a career worst. So the 3-point shooting is definitely an issue right now. Yeah, well, that's one of the cons, right? And I listed that because he's like, Ingram hasn't played more than 64 games since his rookie season, and to give up that dough to a player like that's a big risk. That Masai, put it this way, guys, Masai's betting big. Like, it's a great trade phase value. I said that already, but when you look at what Ingram's potentially going to make, he's betting big. He's betting big on Brandon Ingram. I think how Masai views this, he views this as like a backdoor Kawhi Leonard. Like, from the sense where, let me take a chance on a guy who kind of got forgotten about. You know, he's got this injury-prone label, but when he is healthy, he does show that he can be a very solid all-star caliber player. I'm taking a chance here. And if it hits, I look like a genius. And like, that's what it is, right? Like, Brandon Ingram, this either becomes a disaster with the contract and him being unable to stay healthy, or it looks absolutely brilliant, where Masai takes another chance, it pays off, Ingram becomes a huge, you know, stud. I still don't think he's a superstar per se, but like, he becomes like a legitimate all-star type talent. He was a former all-star. He gets back to that and then some. And then you really look back at this move like, wow, like Masai really did it again. And I think that's what Masai's hoping out for. Like, He's trying a sneaky Kawhi Leonard backdoor type of move with this. Like, I'm like, especially when you look at what he got him for, like this is a buy low move that could either go up in flames or end up booming like the stock market. Like, this is like a stock that we'll see where it goes, up or down. And that's the fascinating part about this. I think it's either a huge success or a huge disaster. No in between. Yeah, I said that on a previous stream. Like, when Ingram is cooking, like when he's in the zone, like just watching him, like I used to watch quite a bit of Pelicans games. I actually really like that team. I thought the Pelicans, if you go to some of my older videos on my personal channel, like I believed in the Pelicans. I really thought Ingram with Zion, they were going to take that team deep into playoff runs, but they just couldn't stay healthy. And that's the thing. Because like when Ingram is cooking, when he's playing well, he's got some massive performances. And he does show you shades of KD with just how effortless he is offensively. Like, he is one of the best pure scorers, in my opinion, like when he is operating at his 100% level. Does RJ have value in another team? Hopefully they want him this offseason. I would say RJ still has a ton of value, especially him playing really well. He's had a nice season. I said it earlier, Jason. I like it. It's low risk. It could end up being huge for you. It could end up being a big payday. And honestly, if it doesn't, like, it is what it is. You took a chance on it. I like that it's low risk. You're not sacrificing a whole ton. You're seeing it through. This season's a wrap. Like, you're not seeing Wiseman. He's out. But, you know, maybe this guy can become something under the Raptors and resurrect his career. So I actually like taking the chance on Wiseman. I don't think it's something to, like, hold your breath on or be like, oh, yeah, James Wiseman's going to become, like, an all-star center, like a huge center for this team. But I think it's worth taking a chance on him. And just for his sake, I hope he stays healthy. Like, I remember, like, all the buzz on Wiseman coming into the NBA, and it's a shame that he never really, like, realized that potential. Like, he's a former number 2 overall pick. There was questions that he was going to go number 1. So I really hope if there's one place he can turn his career around, it's here. Well, that's why hopefully you get Cooper Flag. But yeah, Jakob Poeltl's a bad fit because he creates spacing issues with the worst spacing in the league. Well, the Raptors did not trade him, and it doesn't seem like they are interested in trading him. Hate to see the Raptors stuck with a Levine-type contract. We bought a house on a huge discount with a $50 million annual property tax. That's a great comment. Yeah. That's we'll see if that ends up being Brandon Ingram, but like I said, I'm holding out that the Raptors can get a bargain on his deal. But to pay 48 mil, like, how do you guys feel about that? To pay Brandon Ingram 48 million a season when he has not proven that he can stay healthy yet for a full season. I know he's still young. He's entering his prime now, so that's why I said it before. Like, it's boom or bust. Like, it's either he takes off over this next contract, because if it's a 3-year, like 27 to 30, actually, he's going to be 28 in September. So when we see the full version of Brandon Ingram, which is next season, you would think, like, he's going to be 28. Like, this is the time where you either see him, like, take a huge step forward or not. Because this is when he is literally going to be in his prime. It's a possibility. Like I said, if I had to make an early prediction, I think RJ's the odd man out in all of this. I just can't fathom and justify right now maybe I'll change my mind once I actually see it on court. RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, and Brandon Ingram working well. Like, I justified and I, sold myself on Barnes and Ingram, and I think that's what Masai sees when looking at this. Like, those are my guys, and it goes back to what Grange reported. Grange ended up being right when he reported that Masai wanted that significant piece next to Barnes. It's BI, right? So I just right now I don't see those three guys, and I think in that equation, like, RJ's that odd man out. So yeah, like I wouldn't be surprised if an RJ trade goes down in the future, especially if they end up with a top pick. Bernard Frank says 40 million would be okay. That is that is a big dip from what he could potentially sign for if he signs for what Bobby Marks said he's eligible for. Ingram's been, I think his rookie season was 2017. So how many years is that? Yeah, so 2016, 2017. So he's approaching his 10th. Yeah, Yuffie brings up a good point. 30 to 35 million, just like IQ contract, not even an all-star. You need to pay more because it's Canada tax, it's high. I think Ingram's gonna get close to that 47. Like, I don't see it being substantially less. According to ESPN, Shams, Ingram turned down an extension worth 50 million per year in 2023 and another offer of approximately 40 million annually in the following offseason. Well, that's why Masai is betting big on Ingram, because you hope you get a bargain on his deal, but you're still gonna, odds say you're gonna end up paying for him. So I still think you need more shooting there, though, especially when both those guys operate in the mid range a lot. Like, that's their game. You got three primarily mid range players, like three primary mid range players. Bro, what? I say we let Ingram walks as foil. You don't give up a first to just let him walk. I know it might not be a significant first, but it's still a first round pick. Which is why, like, a lot of the media heads have been saying, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but a lot of the media heads have been just, like, not a fan of this trade at all. And I feel like there are a large portion of fans who like this trade. Like I said, I was very indifferent about it, and I told you my stance. Like, I'm more on board with the trade if it doesn't hinder the Raptors' draft lottery odds for this draft, which is a big, big, big if. It's a big if. Raptors wouldn't pay Siakam for 192. I don't even know. Like, I don't know who would be a potential RJ suitor at this point. But, of course, things could change, coming out of the playoff run, going into the offseason. I think this move is setting up a move to get off RJ, as Masai mentions. IQ is a block for Scotty, and he also mentions that they are getting a player for Scotty. Well, if I had to bet, yeah, I would say they're moving off from RJ. versus IQ. I think RJ is the odd man out. They by giving him quickly the contract that they did, they basically committed to him. Like, they believe in him, and I don't think they would drastically change their opinion this soon about him. I think they just always viewed quickly as more of the long-term guy here, or more of the, I guess, effective fit with Barnes. There was a little debate about that. People saying Siakam better than BI. I'll say this. I think overall, when you just take account for everything, like, Siakam's the better player, but I'd much rather have the ball in Ingram's hands late in games than Siakam. I think Ingram is legitimately, I think Ingram is the first closer the Raptors have had since Kawhi Leonard. Like, a guy who is now you're going to feel comfortable with that guy with the ball in his hands late in games. The Raptors haven't had a guy like that since Kawhi. Siakam was never that guy in the clutch. Like, he's the better overall player, but he was not that go-to, let me take over a game type of player, especially when the Raptors needed him. And I think that's what the Raptors have been missing. So that's the part I'm excited about. I think BI, like, he has that capability where he can explode and just go off. Like, the big thing with BI is health, man. I think if he can stay healthy, like, there's another gear he can hit consistently. It's just been, like, he's been unable to stay on the court. And the other thing, too, is, like, he hasn't had postseason success, or, like, performances in the postseason where it's like, damn, like, that guy is, like, going to be a big-time player. Like, I trust that guy. Like, the thing with Kawhi is when the Raptors traded for Kawhi, you guys got to remember, like, he was killing it with San Antonio. He actually had that deep run with the Spurs, and then he got injured in that playoff series against the Warriors when they had KD. And they probably would have made that a series. Like, they were about to win game one. Like, they were right there. Like, Kawhi showed you, like, damn, this guy's really, really scary good. That's the thing with Ingram. He hasn't really had, like, a postseason sample size where you can see it. Like, I think it's, 2 playoff wins in 9 years? Like, the thing with Kawhi was just, like, is his body ever going to get right? This is a little bit of that, but also, like, does Ingram have it in him, like, in big-time moments? He's done it. Like, one game that comes to mind is when he was going off against the Lakers. I think it was the play-in game. Like, he can definitely go off in bunches, but is he able to kind of take that next step? Like, the thing with Ingram is, like, I think he's definitely a bona fide all-star, like, star. Is he a superstar? My answer right now would be no. And can he become one in the prime of his career, which is basically over the next contract he's going to sign with the Raptors? That's the big if here. Because I always viewed Ingram as a 2, but now I kind of look at it as, like, Ingram's going to be the 1 here, with Scottie being that secondary option. That's how I see this thing. And maybe Ingram's ready because he's never been the number 1 option in his career. Like, this is going to be the opportunity for him, right? Like, in New Orleans, I mean, the team was always injured, but it was always, like, Zion, right? But I think here he's going to be expected to be that number 1 or play, closer to a number 1. Because that's how I see the pecking order with him and Barnes. I think I always viewed Scottie as, like, the ultimate, like, Scottie Pippen, no pun intended. But can Ingram become the guy? That is going to be a question. Well, that's fair. Do you think the bench will be good after the trades? Well, you look at the bench now. Shed, Walter. I'm talking about when everybody's healthy. Shed, Walter, Abaji. You don't have a backup big. So actually Grady. I forgot about Grady. So there's a lot of pieces there. It's just gonna be about rounding out that bench, but definitely lacking in bench in front court depth. Definitely. right now. But yeah, you're looking at Jacoby, Grady, Shed, Abaji. Like those are like your bench guys right now with like a pending big, like Mobo or another guy. What's up, John Bow? Well, yeah, like it is confusing because I for sure think at this point you're absolutely right. Like they're not bringing back Boucher because of Ingram's contract. He's in all likelihood going to walk for nothing, but I guess nothing was able to materialize. I think with Boucher it came down to maybe maybe they couldn't, like, we don't know what the ask, like nothing came out suggesting what a potential framework of a deal looked like. The only thing we saw was that I think Grange said the Nuggets had interest up until the buzzer, but nothing really panned out. But yeah, it does suck in that sense. Like you're essentially going to lose Boucher for nothing now. BI always attacks the basket. That is why he always gets injured, because he always plays ISO. Hopefully, Darko's system, he will get more easy shots, not to get injured. I didn't get why the heck the front office trade for James Wiseman unless the plan is to waive him to shed salary. I think it's just a low risk move. Maybe they want to take a shot on Wiseman, like he's for next season. Maybe some team will buy out Boucher. Do you still think we will be a top 5 worst team after all these trades? It's gonna be tough. It really, really is. It really, really is. I think bottom 6 is a realistic way to put it, but it's gonna be tough. Let me just look at the standings right now. I mean, when you look at the Raptors team compared to some of these bottom teams, man, like I really don't see the Raptors being a bottom team unless like BI sits out till like middle of March. And like we're definitely gonna see him at some point. I guess it's a matter of when. Like Jakob gonna miss another game tomorrow. I don't expect him to be out super long. Same with Barrett. I know he's missed his 3rd straight game, concussion protocol, but he seemed okay. So maybe the Raptors, this is a classic case of just making sure, playing it extra safe. But yeah, right now, guys, so Washington's dead last. Nobody's catching them. New Orleans has 12 wins. But after this trade, you know, I know he wasn't playing because he was injured. I think the Pelicans have their sights set on the draft. Like, they're packing it in for the season, especially with DeJounte out. They got 12 wins. Utah's got 12 wins. The Hornets have 12 wins. So I think those 4 teams are in their own territory. The Raptors have 16 wins. I don't see them catching those teams. And I think all those teams are going to have their sights set on tanking in the draft. Brooklyn, I think, is going to fall down further than us because they've flat out come out and said it. Like, their focus is the draft. So I think realistically, bottom 6 is at play. Because let's just say Brooklyn passes the Raptors. They have 17 wins. Or the Raptors pass Brooklyn. Then you got the Sixers at 20 wins. Sixers, like, I think they're gonna move on up. They've been playing much better lately. I see them going into a play-in spot. And then the next big one, or the next big ones, are Bulls and Blazers, who right now have 22 wins apiece. And maybe even the Hawks, because they've kind of been wildly inconsistent. But they got 22, 22, and 23 wins respectively. So the Raptors at least have cushion when it comes to those teams. But I do see the Nets overtaking the Raptors. So that would put the Raptors with a bottom 6 record, call it. Where I see the Raptors could legitimately still have a chance at a bottom 6 record. And in theory, it gives you a shot at moving on up come draft lottery day. But if you start getting in a position where the Bulls, Blazers, and Hawks start to, come in, or the Raptors start to diminish that lead that they have over those 3 teams, then that's when I think it becomes a disaster. And like at that point, the Raptors are going for the play-in because the Bulls are right there. So I think that's what so I would say bottom 6 is definitely realistically still at play even after this trade. Brooklyn is just the team that pisses me off. Couldn't they have been good? Like literally it's Brooklyn, or else like if Brooklyn wasn't there, the Raptors have a realistic path to bottom 5 still, just because of how much of a cushion they've given themselves. Oh yeah, that's actually true. Well, PJ Tucker's gonna get bought. Oh, that's for sure. Let's look at it. So PJ Tucker, he's got to play. So yeah, he's a UFA. He's a UFA. So yeah, that's gonna be a classic buyout candidate. That was just to help the Heat shed some tax. So much cash considerations, they can throw a legit pizza party. Yeah, the Nets were doing better. So let me see if I can share this thing. Let me see the share screen. Actually, I was gonna share it, but I just accidentally exited. So yeah, I just wanted to give a visual presentation of what I was talking about. So as you can see here, like Wizards, Pelicans, Jazz, Hornets, I think these guys are in their own tier. Like I don't think the Raptors are going to be as bad as these teams, especially when they're going to clearly be tanking. Then I think Brooklyn and the Raptors are on their own next tier. But unfortunately, I do think the Nets are going to pass the Raptors. So then the Raptors would be bottom 6. And then this is where I feel a little bit better because I think the Sixers are going to win, like move on up. I think they're going to end up being a playing team. And then Chicago's the interesting one. Like I think the Chicago Bulls are going to try to be really, really bad, but they still have talent where they can win some games here and there. And the biggest thing is they got a lead in terms of the reverse standings. And I think it goes back to that Bulls win over the Raptors being massive. Because if the Raptors had won that game, that would have closed the bridge even more. And Portland's been doing a lot of winning. I don't see that team like significantly slowing down. Like they've been actually a really nice, pleasant surprise the Blazers have. So honestly, yeah, I think bottom 6 is realistic, guys. Like even after this trade, that's why like I'm still holding out hope. Ideally, you'd like to even get better in the bottom 5, but if the Raptors are in this territory come end of March, April, like I think we'll all be looking back and feeling a lot better about the BI trade, or at least I will. Well, they didn't trade for Brandon Ingram, that's for sure. Ooh, this is a good question. It's a really good question. Do you feel like it's going to affect Grady's development? If anything, I think it's going to help Grady's development. I always had questions about Grady Dick being a legitimate starter. I personally viewed him as like a sixth man type of guy. And maybe by this trade, pushing him, we assume, out of a starter's role, he can find his identity, more of an identity now in a bench role. And I would assume like he's going to be one of the first guys from off the bench. I view him as like a sixth guy type of player. And I really think like if he doesn't have to take on so much of the defensive responsibilities and he can just be asked to like come in and inject instant offense, kind of like what Chris Boucher had been doing, I have hope that like he can become consistent when he has more of like a defined role. And I think that's a role that he might thrive in, better in, than asking him to be a starter. So I am not giving up on Grady, but I think this could end up working out to his advantage, making the most out of the lesser role when he's still going to be a prominent bench guy, you would think. Of course, there's Jacoby too, so like which one of those guys are really going to seize this opportunity? But I think the Raptors, out of those two, like they need a weapon from off the bench, a guy who can just flip the game with his offense. Adam Silver better reward us with the ethical tank. I feel like in 2 to 4 years' time, Chomchi will be part of the Raptors rotation. I think that's a safe enough bet. 2 to 4 years. He's still so raw. You don't know what to expect from him. But he can end up being a very big project, man. Like a very big A+ on a project. What was the second round pick for Davon is the Lakers 2026 second rounder. That was the thing with Shams. Like, he killed it, but, like, a lot of the details came out after. So you have to do a lot of digging to see, like, oh, like, who owns this pick? Or when is this pick coming? Or, like, you know, who's sending this pick? Or all that. Like, the minor stuff. But, yeah, guys, let me know if you have any more questions. This is the Raptors Nation pod, live edition. First time doing a live edition of the pod. If you guys enjoyed it, drop a thumbs up, subscribe, and yeah, maybe I'll make this a consistent thing where instead of doing my pods recorded Thursdays, I'll do them live, and maybe I can even implement some guests that way. But the Raptors definitely got busy on trade deadline day and yesterday leading into the deadline. They saw a lot of roster turnover. Basically, the lone survivor, Chris Boucher, as Josh Lewinberg just tweeted out, the trade call isn't expected until late this evening, as it turns out, so Webster will speak to the media tomorrow morning. So for those of you curious, Bobby Webster will speak to the media tomorrow morning. I believe at 10 a.m. Somebody said it earlier in the chat, as he will address the trade. So, I don't know. We might not get Masai. I don't think Masai is going to be there. It looks like it's going to be a Bobby Webster taking the podium. So, that'll be interesting to hear what he has to say and his rationale behind the trade. I'm actually very curious to hear what he has to say. Right now, it's just been reported that it's going to be Webster. So... I think that's big high hopes for Wiseman. I don't see him as a part of this core or anything. I just hope he can get back to being healthy. That's my wish for Wiseman and my expectation for Wiseman. But those are some lofty ambitions for him, that's for sure. I mean, it's unlikely, man. Just given his track record, he's been very injury prone. I think this is like, again, I'm going to beat a dead horse. Just low risk, doesn't, cost you much. Take a chance on him. If it works, great. If not, you move on. But he's a 23-year-old center, been decimated with injuries, hasn't been able to stay, healthy or just played in a consistent enough amount of games. And, this might be his last chance, really, with the Raptors to prove that he can make something of his career. But he's definitely shown that he has the talent. But I mean, best case scenario, I think, yeah, he could be a viable, I wouldn't say starter, no way. But he could be, a backup, even a reliable fill-in center. But yeah, that would be the ideal if he can be a rotation guy, right? A backup big. Oh, wow. This is crazy. This is off topic, but Canelo and Jake Paul finalized a deal. They're going to be fighting? What? That's crazy. I just saw that on X. Man, we've seen some crazy things, guys. This officially goes down as the craziest NBA trade deadline ever. There was so much player movement that I still can't believe. That graphic that ESPN showed, you could legitimately say that's like a YouTuber's thumbnail, like just a fake graphic showing like, this is what the NBA would look like if I started over, like something outrageous, like crazy, man. But yeah, they effectively outshine Super Bowl week. Well, Lakers are certainly not making any more trades anytime soon. They got their guy. I thought that was a huge haul. Like, the Lakers gave up their lone, 2031 pick, Reddish, Connect. Like, that team is serious about trying to go for it now. It's interesting if the Raptors were potentially able to get that first. I guess not, or else I would think they would have done a deal like that, but do you think Hawks indicated Trae Young is getting traded with the moves? Well, yeah, there seems to be a little bit of rift. That will be interesting to see how that plays out. I always thought Trae was going to end up in San Antonio. I thought it was going to be Trae and not De'Aaron. So, I don't know. The Hawks are a mess, man. They show some good signs, and they fall back to reality. Obviously, Jalen Johnson goes down. That was a huge blow for them. It feels like the Hawks and the Bulls have been stuck in purgatory for so long. And I really hope the Raptors don't head back there with them. That's why they got to do this right. Because those are two teams that just seem like they've been stuck in the middle for eternity. We'll see what happens with the Hawks, but they were reportedly interested in Ingram. It would have been interesting to see what a deal would have looked like. They ended up making a trade with the Clippers, so maybe that would have been the parts involved, and it'd be ideal. I don't know, but what are the Wizards trying to do? I know they're trying to get vets for their young guys, but if I had to make a bet, or prediction, I would say, yeah, the next trade could involve Mr. Barrett when you look at the fact that this is going to be an expensive team for a team that I think most would agree is nowhere close to contention right now. So it'll be interesting to see if the Raptors address going under the tax. Yeah, 2019 was a fun time. Gotta always remind yourself that happened. But that is going to conclude the pod, guys. I appreciate everybody joining me. Just wanted to do a debrief. Just let it all out. Exhale. It's been a crazy last couple of days. The NBA trade deadline is officially in the books. The next thing to have on the horizon is Bobby Webster will address the media tomorrow morning. In all likelihood, it will be 10 a.m. I believe that's what the Raptors YouTube channel has listed. So be on the lookout for that. I'll definitely have my ears on that press conference, hear what Bobby Webster has to say, what the rationale was behind this trade. But the Ingram trade, it's not official, but it's going to be official later tonight. He is a member of the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors got busy these last 2 days, and they have made some moves. And we'll see what this team's intention is now from here on out, as all of the craziness is behind us. The trade deadline is in the books. Trade deadline for the ages. Craziest trade deadline ever. However you want to phrase it, it is done. And now it's back to the games. So appreciate you guys for watching or listening to the pod. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and be on the lookout for more pods every Thursday, as I might start doing more of these live. And be sure to leave us a 5-star review on Apple, iTunes, and Spotify. And before you get out of here as well, you can follow me on X at Luca Rosano 3. That is it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Have yourselves a wonderful night, and I will catch you all again in the next one. Peace out.